Hey, kia ora! Helen Brahms coming to you live from Surprise in Arizona. Hope you're having a super fantastic sparkling day. Welcome to Before the Dirt Nap podcast number 1586, The Man Who Invented Christmas. So yes, last night we got to watch Love Actually with all those different stories that intertwined and the different scenes and everything. And some of you really like that movie, which I absolutely love to hear. And some of you have your favorite scenes. Some of you have your favorite storylines. So thank you, everybody who has given feedback on the movie Love Actually. So tonight, we're going to be watching The Man Who Invented Christmas. Came out in 2017. It is available on Prime Video. And this is a movie I have never seen before, but it intrigued me, got my curiosity going. And it's basically about how Charles Dickens wrote A Christmas Carol, and how he came up with the characters and the humbug and all the stuff about the story. So it's how he drew inspiration from different things that were going on around him. So let me get this right. Let's see. So I've got to go another cast list. Hang on. So Dan Stevens plays Charles Dickens. Let's see who else is in there. You may know Christopher Plummer is Scrooge. I'm just trying to see. Maria Magalhaes is Mrs. Fisk. And if you don't know who she is, but you've seen the Harry Potter movies, she's the one that does or the gardening one in the greenhouse and teaches them about the different plants and everything, the botanist. I guess that's what you would call her, the botanist. Yeah. So that's her there. And I love her. She has such a great personality, and everything I have seen her in, I have absolutely loved. So I'm looking forward to seeing her play Mrs. Fisk, and I have no idea who Mrs. Fisk is. I'm thinking it might be the housekeeper. I don't know. So this is a really cool, because I don't know anything about this movie apart from what I have read about how at the time when it's a biographical, what do they call it? A biographical comedy drama film. And it's basically based in 1843, 4 years after the success of Oliver Twist. And Charles Dickens finds himself in financial hardship after from the failure of his last 3 books. I don't know what the last 3 books are. They don't mention it in the description that they give here. And he's been rejected by publishers and sets out to write a new book and publish it himself to restore his finances. And so he sees inspiration all around him. He sees some rich guy funeral, and there's like nobody there for the funeral. And he just picks up little bits and pieces along the way from different characters that are different people that he meets with, different things that people say. And so you get to see the story develop as to how he came up with A Christmas Carol and what it did to him and everything else. You also get to meet his wife. You get to meet his father, his eccentric father. You get to meet his kids. So there's a lot of different characters in here. So it gives you a glimpse into the person who wrote A Christmas Carol. So I'm looking forward to reading it and reading it. It is actually based on a book of the same name. So yes, reading it you can do. They said where they put the book. The book came out in 2008 and it was the same name, and it was written by Les Stanford. It should be. I'm really looking forward to it, because I get to watch a new movie tonight. I have no idea. I really have no idea what it's going to be like. I don't know if it's going to be good or not. So you'll have to wait till tomorrow night to hear my review on it. But that's what we're going to watch tonight. And so I'm looking forward to seeing a new Christmas movie. And actually, I better put on here which night I watched that. I've got my list, and I'm writing on here the date that I watch it, so that I know that I've seen it. December the 4th. Oh yeah. My birthday coming up on Saturday, so I wonder what I'm going to watch on my birthday. Now I have to go through this list and figure out which one I want to set aside for my birthday. I don't know. Am I going to do a new one? Am I going to do one I've seen before? I don't know. Still have to tune in on Saturday to find out. So yeah, so that's what we're watching tonight. 2017 movie that came out, The Man Who Invented Christmas. Have you seen this movie? If you have seen this movie, what do you think of it? Did you like it? Do you have a favorite scene? Do you have a favorite character? I also like looking at characters too, to see, who is my favorite character. Of course, James Bond, that's just, yeah. Although I do have other characters I like Desmond Llewellyn. The 17 James Bond movies was an awesome Q. There was Moneypenny in there with Lois Maxwell. She was there almost as long as, no, not as long as Q was. She wasn't there as long as Q, because when I think Timothy Dalton was the last time we saw her as Moneypenny. No, hang on. Yeah, because when they brought in GoldenEye with Pierce Brosnan, they had a new M. I mean, they had a new M, and they had a new Moneypenny as well. So I'm going to be interested to see. I mean, I've got a couple of favorite actresses and actors in this movie, so I'm going to be seeing if I like their character that they play as well. I mean, there's uber talent in this thing. And Love Actually had a lot of good talent in it too. It's one of those movies you just like, and you got all these different stories that intermingle, and some have got drama, some are comedy, some are a little bit of both. Some are just sweet and just sort of like makes your heart melt. And like Colin Firth with his character when he's in France and he has a Portuguese housekeeper and he doesn't speak Portuguese and she doesn't speak English. But what's funny is that when you're reading, when she's speaking in Portuguese, you're reading what she says, and he basically says the same thing in English and going, you know, we're going to do this, da 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 da, and they're basically mirroring each other what they're saying. But one's speaking in English, one's speaking in Portuguese, and they have no idea that they're talking about the same thing, which I think is really sweet. But that's a really, I love that storyline. But yeah, so I'm curious to see about this man who invented Christmas, because I've never really learned anything about Charles Dickens. So because when I read this about the man who invented Christmas, and I was reading about it, I thought, well, no, I don't know anything about Charles Dickens. Have I read any of his books? I read part of his books. I think what was the one with the woman in the wedding dress? There's one about a woman in a wedding dress. What was that one? Was it Tale of Two Cities? No, I don't even remember which one it was. I read part of that one. So this is an author who I've heard a lot about. I've seen various versions of A Christmas Carol in movies. I've never read the book, but I've seen different versions of it in the movies, of course, based on the book. So I'm kind of curious now to see who is Charles Dickens and what did he have to go through in his life to bring out this book. You know, he was on the verge of financial ruin, and he wrote this. He had a certain amount of time to write his next book that he was going to self-publish that would put him back on track, and how he came out with A Christmas Carol. So curious to find out what the other books are that were between. Now I'm going to have to go look up the order of his publishing stuff to find out after Oliver Twist. Now Oliver Twist is a really cool musical. Please, sir, may I have some more? So he had Oliver Twist, then 4 years, and he had 3 books that failed during that, between Oliver Twist and when he came out with A Christmas Carol. So I'm curious now that I'm going to go find out what were those 3 books that failed between Oliver Twist and A Christmas Carol, because maybe one of them I read. So I'm curious to see how this is. When was it? Thursday? Yeah, now mastermind we had a coaching call on Thursday last week for our mastermind group, and it was all about curiosity. And so ever since then, I'm like thinking, what else am I curious about? You know, coming up with different things. And we actually got to share some of the things that we're curious about. Some of it was, you know, I'd like to talk to somebody who, and they'd name some profession or something like that. And all of a sudden in the chat, that somebody would be going, oh, my cousin's into this. My husband does this. My friend does this. Da, 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 da. And, you know, all these connections could be made that you could go and talk to somebody who did whatever it is that you were looking for. Mine was to, what did I write for mine? I know I had Dame Judi Dench and Dame Maggie Smith on there. Just sit down and just talk with them. They have fascinating lives. And if you've ever seen them, the documentary Tea with the Dames, is Dame Maggie Smith, Dame Judi Dench. Oh, I can never remember the other 2. But they're 4 very, very good friends, have been best friends for years. Know each other's families intimately, and once a month, I think it is, that these 4 dames come together and have tea and just hang out for an afternoon. They have like a Sunday afternoon tea and just hang out for a few hours and catch up on each other and all this. But this one time, they actually invited a film crew to come in, and they talked about memories of their families and the movies they had been in and different characters they had played, and and one of them was married to Laurence Olivier, and the other 3 had been in movies with him. And at one point they were comparing kisses. It was hilarious, but it's just them, completely natural, complete, no script. It's just them having a conversation of things. And they start out in the garden, then it starts to rain, so they have to move inside. And they have photographs that they show of some of the back on sets, or when they were doing trips together as family, just taking when they'd all go on a family trip together, and with their own family, take their own families, and they'd all go on a trip together. So that was really cool. So that was one of my ones. And what was the other ones? I can't remember what the other ones were. But it's ever since I had that conversation, it started sparking my brain is, what am I curious? I'm curious about a lot of things, because people turn to me and they say, you know a lot of information about, and I go, no, I just know a little bit about a lot of stuff. And it's because I get curious. And I'm sort of like, oh, that sounds really cool. And so I might go and research it for a little bit. And then I'm sort of like, okay, I've learned what I need to learn. I've learned what I need to learn about that. I don't need to learn anymore. I'm happy with what I have learned. Like one of my dreams as a kid was to, once I was at the Air Force Open Day in Ohio in February of 1981, I wanted to fly jets, but they wouldn't allow women to fly in the Royal New Zealand Air Force, period. And so I actually wrote them a letter asking them why they did not do this, why they would not allow women to be pilots in the Air Force. And I got a letter back from them. It was a very nice letter. I don't remember much of what was in there, except one line that said, there are some things we have to limit the women in. And I was sort of like, why? But I love jet planes, so I still went on, and I decided I was going, at the Air Force Open Day at Ohio, which was the Air Force Base there in ZF. Ohio was an Air Force base in New Zealand, and it had our fighter aircraft. It had our fighter aircraft there. I don't think they have any more fighter aircraft these days, but anyway, they had the Skyhawks and the Strike Masters back then, and they had those planes there, and they had them on display. And of course, I love buttons and dials and tools and things. And one of my favorite planes to go on was a navigation training aircraft that we had at Wigram when I was in the Air Force. And I got to go on that plane every now and again to do amendments to the books that were on the plane that were not allowed to leave the plane. So in the tail of that plane was all the maintenance manuals. And these books were like about this thick, and there's like about 10 of them. But it's all the wiring charts are in there, or the structure components are in there. So the electronics one and then the structure one, all of everything was in there, all the diagrams and everything else. And then they had the NOTAMs, which is the notices to airmen, and they were up in the cockpit area in a certain pocket there. And I could take them into the main part of the airplane, which on this plane, this one side was just, I think it was about 4 or 5 radar screens, complete with all their buttons and knobs and twirls and dials and everything else, all surrounding the screen. They had these beautiful, comfortable chairs in front of them that they got to sit in. And then there was sort of like some normal airline seats behind you that went in a single row down the other side for those that were not sitting at the navigation controls, so for the instructors and things. And I had to figure out how to take these manuals, which were like about this thick, and paper size, bigger than paper size because it covered the paper, and how to put them on, find a flat surface on a plane which had nothing but the navigation stuff on there. You had nothing but the navigation stuff on there, and so you couldn't put them on the counters where these things were, because they had like all the keyboards, they had other buttons and controls there, and so you couldn't really put the books on there. So I had to like sit on the floor of these aircraft and lay these manuals out and do all the changes and everything in them, and then put them all away again. And I just remember sitting there looking at those buttons and dials one day going, ooh, I wonder what these do, and wanting to push them and turn them and just play with them. But no, I was good. I kept my hands off them. I stood there. I actually stood there with my hands behind my back and just leaned in and was like looking at what the labels were on these things. But I also only had a certain amount of time to be on the aircraft, so I did have to get on with my work and get that done. And I was the same in the cockpit, just sort of like looking up at those on the roof there, on the dashboard, it was fascinating. I loved it. So yeah, that fixed that. But I've been curious about a lot of things for all my life. I love curiosity. And so this one here it piqued my curiosity because it was about Charles Dickens and how he wrote A Christmas Carol. And I thought, let's see what the story is behind A Christmas Carol and how it got written. Because I know next to nothing about Charles Dickens. I've never researched him, never looked him up, never seen any of it. I don't know anything about him and his family and his history or anything. So this is going to be very cool. So I'll learn things in it. And I know they dramatize things for things and they add things in and take things out. And I know that. So I know about half of what I see may be true. Maybe true. The other half, probably not. But anyway, so we're going to go and watch The Man Who Invented Christmas that came out in 2017. If you have Amazon Prime, it is available on Amazon Prime for free. For those with an Amazon Prime account, it is available for you to see. So we're going to go watch it. And if you watch it or have seen it, please let us know in the comments below what you think of this movie, who your favorite characters are, what your favorite scenes are. And we will compare notes tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. Pacific, along with whatever movie we're going to watch tomorrow night. So go out, have a super fantastic, sparkling evening, and we'll catch you back here at 6 p.m. Pacific tomorrow evening. He konera.